Now, bass variations are very easy to make in theory, but then in practice, everybody struggles with them, including me. So today, let's have a look at some bass variations and how we can make them and actually see if we can learn a system that works well in a consistent way. And the way that we're going to do that is through Mute Productions' new Prog Full-On Bassline sample pack. Comes with a kick drum as well, so here we have the kick, which I'm first going to drag in. And let's just set up a few bars here that we can work with. Let's go with 16, like this. Now this pack comes with 6 different basses, all for specific BPM, as you can see. I'll talk about the BPM in a little bit, but let's go into one of the basses and we can see that we have raw material over here. So this is the raw synthesis without any of the processing. And then we have 2 variations of the process bassline as well. Right now, looking back into these two, I don't really know what the difference is between these 2 versions. Like, these seem to be the same to me. I think with the Maxlove, you maybe wanted to normalize these. And that would be really helpful to have a normalized version of this bassline as well if you want to load it into a sampler. But let's just load a G in here so that I can show you how I would work with this. I wouldn't load it into a sampler, I would just work with it in audio, because it is really easy to just see what is happening. And that is also why I want to come back to the BPM. I don't really think that the BPM matters that much. Like, it's designed for a certain BPM, and yes, that means that you probably wouldn't be able to use this at, say, 200 BPM. But if you're around the same BPM, I don't think that there's really any big problems that can occur. And when it comes to phase alignment, if these basses are designed with phase alignment in mind, I would say there that I tend to do my phase alignment in the kick drum anyway. So whenever I'm in a real production, I just have Audio Jack kick drum and I can just phase align inside of that plugin. And then we're phase aligning the kick drum against the bass line as opposed to the bass line against the kick drum, which most people do. Now, quick intermission here. Like and subscribe the video. You know the drill. Every YouTuber has to do it. We also have to ask for comments to get that good old engagement, but I think you guys know by now, so let's just get back into the video. So normally for these sampled bass lines, what you would do is you would just turn that into a rolling bass line by chopping out the 16 note over here. And then let's add a little fade towards the end here. Right now, of course, these bass notes are very quiet, so I'm just going to turn them up in volume until they are basically normalized. And then, of course, you would extend that throughout your whole loop. And there you have a strong kick and bass. Now, of course, this is really the most general pattern that you can have. Rolling kick and bass is used everywhere in psytrance. So just adding a few variations would make it a little bit more interesting. And in order to do that, we need to make space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this first note here. And we're going to start implementing the first variation by taking that same sample and turning it into a slide bass instead. So I've just chopped out the sample. As you can see, it's lined up over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fade so that it comes in after the kick, kind of that it smoothly comes in as this tail is going down. It is a little bit unclear here, so maybe something interesting that we can do is with the warp mode complex, we can go in here and to transposition and maybe do something interesting with the pitch bend. And of course, this would need to be duplicated over. So let's say that we have that for 2 bars. We're going to duplicate this over. And now already we have a little bit more of a pattern to it, a little bit more of a groove to it. Of course, it is still a little bit repetitive and a little bit boring, so let's add another variation towards the end here. What we can do is we can just turn off an extra area there and then just duplicate this over. Now, sometimes it is nice to just leave things empty. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to make a variation over here, and then we're not going to duplicate that over here so that there's a difference between this second segment and this first segment over here. So adding in our other sample, we're just going to go for an offbeat bass, which with these samples, again, is very simple because you can just drag it in like this. Again, volume balance some of these things. Maybe you don't have to go up 12, but let's give them, say, 10 here, so that the rolling bass is standing out still a little bit more. Then we duplicate this over, and now we have something like this. That's sounding cool, but another variation that we can make is to actually remove that pitch bend that we're doing over here, so that it now kind of falls in line with basically the main rhythm of our rolling bass line, which has an extra stop at the end of every 4 bars here. And that means that this is now also a 4-bar pattern that we can duplicate over. What might be cool is to find a little bit of a layer sound here. Maybe let's take this one over here. Let's actually try and see if we can layer these two together, these two samples. And I'm going to chop them out and to do something a little bit more complex here by just adding in a rhythm like this. Duplicate that over and delete this from over here so that this one is clean, again for a variation. And now we're going to process these samples together because these are going to be our stereo layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the lower frequencies first of all, because we don't want that clashing with our main bass line. And then I'm going to generate a little bit of stereo width for these, because of course these are going to be our stereo layer. And then finally, I'll also add some dimension expander to add stereo in a different way. Maybe something like this. And now within the mix, we have something that sounds like this. So already we have a little bit of an interesting groove on top of that. And this allows us to now start adding drums and other stuff that interacts with that groove. And that is where you get into the real magic of these kind of drops. Because of course now all of the elements have to work together to really reinforce the groove that you're setting up here. I've talked about this in another video going over progressive drops as well, where I should really show all of the different elements that go into making one. So I'm going to end this video over here. I hope that you enjoyed it and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.